The transatlantic slave trade forced 12.5 million Africans onto slave ships to the Western Hemisphere between 1514 and 1866. During the nearly 36,000 voyages, almost 2 million perished. 10.7 million survived and arrived in North and South America and the Caribbean. Over 150 years later, despite slavery being illegal in all recognized countries, there are more slaves today than at any other time in human history, and human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal industry in the world. An estimated 40.3 million people are victims of slavery, and the majority are women and children. Modern slavery generates $150 billion in profits every year and is most prevalent in Africa, followed by Asia and the Pacific region. Half of the victims are trapped in labor slavery, 37.5% are in forced marriage, and 12.5% are in sex slavery. Children under the age of 18 represent 1 out of 4 slaves. Whether it's mining for cobalt to supply cell phones and electric cars, or mica to add shimmer to car paint and cosmetics, or laboring in agriculture, or as domestic servants, millions of children are being exploited and robbed of their freedom, while they endure physical and emotional trauma, which has long-term effects into adulthood. Poverty is a common cause for human trafficking, and more than half the population of Ghana lives below the poverty line. Poor access to health care, illiteracy, lack of formal education, and high rates of infectious diseases, such as malaria, trap families in a cycle of poverty. The average income in Ghana is $3 a day, so families living in poverty are vulnerable to traffickers. They promise the parents they will enroll their children in school, and in return the children can work during school breaks and weekends. Instead, children are trafficked to work in gold mines, cocoa farms, and the fishing industry, where they work up to 14 hours a day. In gold mines, they are at risk from explosions and tunnels collapsing, and they breathe thick dust and sometimes toxic gases. They also work with mercury when amalgamating it with gold, which is highly poisonous and can be absorbed through the skin or inhaled in mercury vapor. It attacks the central nervous system and can cause lifelong disability, including brain damage and even death. On cocoa farms, children as young as 5 do hard labor. Some use sharp machetes to clear forests, while others climb cocoa trees to cut down bean pods. Because of the prolific insect populations, there is heavy use of industrial chemicals, and children as young as 10 spray cocoa pods, exposing them to these toxins. Eric Piazza, founder of Right to Be Free, a non-governmental organization in Ghana, assisted in a rescue mission funded by Interpol Ghana in collaboration with Interpol Lyon, the anti-trafficking unit of the Ghana Police Service, and other organizations. This major operation illustrates how the government collaborates with non-governmental organizations to combat child trafficking. Eric assisted with the planning of the mission and the training of 127 law enforcement officers. And he helped lead a team into the illegal gold mines to identify trafficked children. 22 alleged traffickers were arrested and 48 children were rescued, most of whom were working in the illegal gold mines. The Ghana government, together with the private sector and international organizations, has carried out extensive programs on the elimination of child labor in the cocoa sector. Consequently, the number of children working has decreased, while there has been growth in Ghana's cocoa production. In the hazardous fishing industry, children, some as young as 4 years old, are also trafficked to work on Lake Volta, the world's largest man-made lake.
Recently?
Yeah,
Okay.
recently, yes.
And he's about 8 years old?
Yeah, so between 8 and 9.
They work 14-hour days, 7 days a week, and often receive only one small meal a day, which is often withheld as punishment. They often bear scars from the dangerous work and physical abuse, and sometimes suffer crippling injuries or even death when they try to untangle submerged fishing nets and drown. On occasion, we collaborate with the Ghana Navy on rescue missions. This officer helps Eric interview a rescued boy named Elijah and acts as a translator. When the children are rescued, their masters are never paid any funds. They undergo a 6-month rehabilitation process where they receive medical care, psychosocial counseling, attend school in the on-site classroom at the rehabilitation center where they learn English, the official language of Ghana, and have a chance to laugh and play again. They are later reunited with their families after conducting a home assessment and enrolled in school. We continue to support their educational needs and monitor their assimilation back into their communities of origin. Rosemary is 24 years old and a Right to Be Free micro-grant recipient. She has a business buying raw eggs wholesale and selling cooked eggs on the street. Senyo was visiting with her today to ask her how she is doing. Eric rescued Senyo 15 years ago when he was 5 years old and working on Lake Volta. He is now going to college and volunteers for Right to Be Free. Rosemary tells Senyo her mother died when she was 17 years old, so she and her brothers, Richmond and Godsway, went to live with their aunt. A fisherman convinced her aunt that he would take care of her brothers, who were only 6 and 7 years old at the time, and he would put them in school and they could help him fish on Lake Volta. However, the boys were never enrolled in school and they were trafficked for 6 years. Rosemary sought Right to Be Free's help one day when we were monitoring rescued children who were reintegrated into her village. She said after Right to Be Free rescued Richmond and Godsway, we gave her a micro-grant to start her egg business. Rosemary says she sells eggs 3 days a week, and each market day she makes 15 Ghana cedis, or $2.78 in profit, and she saves 5 cedis, or 93 cents. Right to Be Free keeps track of her business, and every week she reports her profits and deposits a portion into an account. Other days she works on farmland to grow food for her and her brothers. Rosemary said she is very grateful to Right to Be Free because they made her business possible. She said, I pray to the Almighty God to abundantly bless Right to Be Free. I also promise to take good care of this business so that out of it I can take care of me and my brothers as well. Here are Rosemary's 2 younger brothers. Richmond on the left is 13 and Godsway is 12. Right to Be Free enrolled them in school and pays for their school tuition, supplies, and uniforms. The school's headmistress says, Richmond, shown here in class, and Godsway always come to school early. They are active and happy, and they want to be in school. Richmond rises to answer a math problem. Thank you, Right to Be Free, for sending me to school, for buying my books, uniform, shoes, and other things, and for supporting my sister selling so she can take care of me. Poor communities are vulnerable to traffickers who prey on uninformed villagers, so Right to Be Free's community outreach programs work to prevent and combat child trafficking by educating at-risk villages about the deceptive practices used by traffickers. Right to Be Free's Boots for Books program, also known as B4B, was implemented in 5 communities where child trafficking is endemic. The program provides reading instruction and soccer training to 75 children. Since families often cannot afford to send their child to school, the B4B program is the only opportunity for their child to learn to read. The children attend weekly reading classes and they must complete their daily assignments before they are allowed to participate in the soccer training. They are also educated about their rights and self-advocacy to help protect them from traffickers. Right to Be Free manages the B4B program and trains the volunteers. Over time, they will supervise and train other volunteers as it expands, creating a sustainable program. And while working in these villages, we will identify children who have been trafficked and plan for their future rescue. While the B4B program will increase literacy rates, as long as children are not enrolled in school, they are still vulnerable to traffickers. That is why our microgrant program targets the most needy female-headed households, like Joy and Rosemary, to help them build a business to support their families, reducing the risk of trafficking. The B4B program and microgrant programs work together to protect children while giving their families the opportunities to break free from the depths of poverty. Thanks to your generosity, compassion, and support, we can continue to save lives and provide hope and sustainable solutions to the less fortunate.